So in today's tutorial, I am going to talk about how you could use your Rhino model to create an augmented reality model with Adobe Aero. This is a very short process. The key goal here is to use proper Rhino layers and then utilize them inside Adobe Aero. So let's get started. So here you can see my Rhino model. I have created this for the peel-up bench for the highline. Now, first thing first, I have to create some realistic textures for this uh, peel-up bench. For that, I would at first create some layers. So I'd create some wood, I'd create some concrete, I'd create some steel, and that would basically be it. So let's do that. Now let's assign different objects in different layers. So upon selecting your specific objects, right click on the layer and change object layer. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to get ourselves some realistic materials, because the materials that we are assigning in Rhino would be seen in Adobe Aero. So to do that, I'll use Quixel Bridge, but you can go in the internet and then use any kind of materials you want. But I suggest that you use Quixel Bridge, so because it's a very large free resource. There are like tons of resources for textures, and they are very realistic. They are industry standard, and they would give you albedo map and associated normal maps and other different types of occlusion maps. So let's do that. So here you can see my Quixel Bridge. It's still loading. So it's important to understand where you have downloaded your stuff. So to understand that, you just go to Edit and click on Settings. This will show you your download folder. So if you click on that, you'll see the file path. Keep that in mind because we are going to use that in a bit. So let's search for different textures. So let's download very high resolution. Now let's download a concrete. Let's do that one. And for the metal, we are going to use the default metal of the Rhino for now. So let's go to Edit and Settings for Quixel Bridge again. And let's open up that folder path. Just copy that and open that path in the Windows Explorer. You'll see that I have sorted these files according to date modified, and all I downloaded was this concrete and this wood. So let's go inside and see what are they. So you'll see that there's albedo and then there's normal. These are the two files we'll be needing. So let's go back to Rhino, and in the concrete, let's click on the material, and instead of the default material, I'll use a new material and custom. And inside texture, I'll click here to assign a texture. This would be the albedo map. So I'll just copy that file path and then paste it here. And I'll just double click on albedo. You'll see then there's also a bump or normal map. I'll assign that too. It takes a while to load because this is a very high resolution texture. So I'll double click on that, and that bump map would be assigned. This would be a very high resolution texture. Again, that's the reason we are using Quixel Bridge. I'll hit OK. Now you'll be able to see this if you just go in the perspective and hit this is smaller and click on rendered. You'll see that this is great. There are all these imperfections and stuff. You'll learn to scale this material in a bit. I'll do the same for the wood at this point. So I'll create a new material, custom, and then instead of color, again, I'll just use a new texture. And then at this point, instead of concrete, I'm going to use wood. So that's that. It takes a while to load again. So, and then there's the bump. And I'll just hit OK. You'll see I have assigned some nice wood. Now you can see that these textures are very stretched and we don't want that. So to solve this, I'll select my concrete and my woods. I'll go in the properties, object properties, and inside there, you'll see there's texture mapping. This is the button for texture mapping. Click on that. And because this is a very simple object, I'll just do a box mapping. So what it does is it lets me create a box for the texture with dimensions, and I can just click on this icon over here, that's apply box mapping, and I can type the box dimensions. So I feel that these textures, both for concrete and the wood, could be like 2 feet by 2 feet by 2 feet. So I'll type in that 2 feet space 2 feet space 2 feet. And now if I zoom in, you'll see that these textures are all taken care of. They're all in the right dimensions and they're actually looking good, pretty good. I'm happy with this. And now for the steel, I'll just click on the steel, click on here, use a new material, and here I'll just use a metal and I'll be done with it. You can see that I have glossy metal going on. So that's about it for preparation of your 3D model for Adobe Aero in Rhino. And now we need to export this. So I'll hide all my lines. So I use a selection filter always to get my lines. Click on this small arrow of this small icon, and then click on this spiral. That would select all the lines, and I'll just hide all of them. That's great. That's looking great. I'll just select everything that I want to export. Go to File and Export with Origin. This will let us this will let us select an origin point from the model. So I'll just click on this corner and I'll save it on here. Now it's important that you save it as an FBX because Adobe Aero can take in FBX. So I'll just do that. That's motionbuilder.fbx and name it. Now it will ask a bunch of options. What you need mesh only. This is fine. All the default options are pretty great. Now this pops up. This is the level of detail. Now if you're having a lot of soft edges such as arcs, cylinders and things like those, I suggest you turn it all the way down. This will save you a lot of file size, because essentially what it does is it like creates a low-res version of your 3D model. But because we have only the rectangular models and it doesn't need any triangulation, whatever I do would not create much difference in my case. So if you're like me and if you have created only rectangular models, then it really doesn't matter what you do. But if you have some soft corners, soft edges, fillet edges and things like those, then I suggest turn it somewhere over here or here, not all the way up. That would save you like some file size. So hit OK and it will be saved, which is great. Now I just want to do one more thing. I just want to copy my files to the location of my 3D model. Okay, copy the texture files to the location of the 3D model. And this might not be necessary always, but this, from my experience, what I have seen that Adobe Aero sometimes misses some texture. So instead of just feeding it an FBX, if you feed it a zip file, it runs better. So I'll just use the texture files that I have created so far. Only those, not everything. So only the albedo and normal for the wood and the concrete. So keep that in mind. Now what I need to do is select this FBX and the texture files, right click and add to archive. Because I'm using WinRAR, I have to do it like this, but you can just add to archive and create a zip. So that's done. So it has created this zip file, which is okay. Now we open Adobe Aero. So Adobe Aero by default looks like this. You have to create a new file. File name is extremely important because this is how this is going to show up in your mobile AR app. So I'll just name it Peel Up Bench. Hit OK. Now I need to import that zip file. So I'll just copy my file path. Click on this plus icon, paste, and import this zip file. While it loads, it's important to understand that Aero takes the units from Rhino. So if you have created it in live scale, then it will come in as a like life-sized model. And if you have scaled it down, say if you wanted to create a tabletop model, then you'd have to like scale it down inside Rhino, because that would save you a lot of time. You could do exact scaling and all the good stuff. It takes a while to load because like the texture files are super heavy and it's associating all of those with this. Great, this has imported. Now I'll just talk about some basic shortcuts, basically two shortcuts that I frequently use in Aero. One is V. V is for selection, moving, and things like those. And the other is 3. 3 is for dolly. So remember that. You don't need shortcut keys for pan and orbit because right click and drag is orbit and middle mouse button click and drag is pan. And 3 and then drag it front or back dolly. So that's all about navigation. You can see that it has been imported very nicely. I could do some animations with it because this is a comprehensive tutorial. I'll show you one simple type of animation. So in order to create some behavior or animation, just click on this human icon over here. And while selecting your model, click on trigger. I want this to be animated when I tap on it. And then on action, I'll create a spin action. Now if I play it, you'll see it rotates very fast. If you don't want that, then that's fine. You don't have to do that. But if you want that, in my case I do, I'll just need to change this to somewhere around like 5 seconds. And instead of ease in, ease out, I'll do a linear, and then I'll do an infinite. That way it will keep rotating. So that's about it. Now I can just share, and if I just click on create link, this will create a QR code for that. So now that's the QR code. Now if you scan that, it will like create AR augmented reality model wherever you want. And this does not require any software installation on your phone, and you can scan it with your phone. Now, if you scan the QR code with your camera, it will load up the model. It may take a while to load the model depending on the file size, but if you have published it from Adobe Aero, this will definitely load. So don't worry, it just may take a while, but this will load. And with this, you can like show this to any of your clients, your friends, or like whoever you want your design to be conveyed at. So just wait, let it load. And then if you hit continue and place it on a specific point at the floor, your model will be locked in place, and you can see it in your room space or physical room with the help of your mobile phone. And that's basically it for how to create an augmented reality model with Rhino and Adobe Aero. Now, if you want to create a tabletop model, all you need to do is select everything and then scale it down. So to scale down, you need to just shift and click on this red, blue, or green boxes. So I'll just shift and click here, and I'll just scale it at 1:8, and it has become small. Now I want to create a rotation in a nicer axis. So I'll create an axis somewhere in the middle of the bench. So to do that, I'll just create a line really soon. So yeah, let's project off and create that line, and create another line that represents the axis. Move that a little, and that would be a nice place for the axis. So I'll just do that, and then file, export with origin, and with that point, that would be the tabletop model. So I'll save it as an FBX. And keep all the default settings. And done. That's the FBX file we need for Adobe Aero. Now let's import that into Adobe Aero in a similar fashion. I'll just create a zip file with all of these. You can see that the file sizes are pretty big. So just a quick note, you could use lower sized files. I tend to use higher file size for clarity mostly. But for ease of access, you could use like 2K or 4K textures. 2K is fine because you're viewing this with a mobile phone in the end. So now in Adobe Aero, I'll just create a new file. Name that tabletop. And import that FBX file. It'll take a while to import, but now there's the file. And let's just share. Now, if you just scan that QR code with your phone, it will load. Depending on the file size, it may take quite a while to load. Also the internet speed. And then set it up on a tabletop. Just find a flat surface. Sometimes it struggles to find a flat surface on either pure black or pure white. But now, yeah, sometimes that happens. But upon finding, just tap and then your object will be locked in place and you can view it on top of your table. So that's it. That's how we create a tabletop model.